About chapters 13 to 28 in Holes by Louis Sacker. Okay guys, this is a really good book, a Newbery Medal winning book, along with I don't know, 10 or maybe 15 more medals and awards, like the Boston Globe Horn Book Award and the National Book Award. Also the winner of the Christopher Award for Juvenile Fiction and New York Times notable children's book of the year, a Horn Book Fanfare, and the list goes on and on. Okay, so we're gonna start with chapter 13 on Stanley. So Stanley is right now digging in Camp Green Lake, right? And then he saw this gold tube. This gold tube, it had a heart, and etched in the heart was KB. So what do you think that even stood for anyway? KB, or did you think that maybe weren't initials at all? Maybe it was some kind of company or something. I thought that maybe it was some initials. And anyway, so do you think that this gold tube is anything of value? Do you think that the warden will actually like this or not? But so Stanley shows this to X-Ray, right? Do you think that Stanley, X-Ray is getting control of Stanley, and that Stanley shouldn't follow what X-Ray's saying that he has to do, like give anything of interest to him? Do you think that's fair or not? And Stanley moves up one place in the line. Why do you think that Louis Sacker, the author, put this in the book, that Stanley moved up one place in the line? Why do you think that is so important in the story? I think it's maybe he's getting approval of the other boys, right? And that's a really important part. Okay, chapter 14. So when Stanley began to talk to X-Ray about the gold tube, X-Ray's like, no, I don't know. So just leave me alone, okay? I don't want to talk to you, right? Were you surprised about this, or were you already guessing that probably X-Ray didn't want to get caught? Anyway, the warden comes, right? Why? But before we talk about how the warden is coming, I wanted to ask you, why do you think that the warden would find a gold tube with a heart and etched in the heart KB? Why do you think that would be of some interest? Would you be interested, or would you just be like, okay, so what? And just keep on going and doing some other thing? Anyway, what do you think about the warden? How would you describe her? And were you surprised that this warden was a woman, or did you just have neutral feelings? You didn't really feel any surprise, And I also wanted to ask you, what do you think? How would you describe how the warden treats the other counselors, like Mr. Pendansky and Mr. Sir? I think it's a little unfair. It reminds me of Darth Vader and the stormtroopers. Warden as the Darth Vader, stormtroopers as the counselors, right? The Darth Vader isn't very nice to the stormtroopers, right? Why do you think that she wants Mr. Pendansky to, get more water for the boys? Do you think that the reason was because she wanted them to dig? Okay, chapter 15. So the warden began to organize people, right? They have to keep on digging and digging. What did you think that they were going to dig? What do you think that they were going to dig? And I thought that they were going to do maybe a treasure chest or something like that. I just thought of that. And also, the warden is just saying, "You're doing just fine, right?" And then the other boys are saying like that there are cameras in the rec room, the shower, in the tents. Do you think that's true? And if it was true, okay, I'm pretty sure it's not true, but let's say it's true, okay? Then do you think that you would ever go to a shower again because the warden's probably watching you? Not me. Well, I would take a shower, but I would try to avoid the shower as much as possible. But the problem is I need to be clean, right? So it's pretty hard to, just decide between both. Okay, chapter 16. Okay, and when Stanley entered the rec room, Stanley X-ray was he was really relaxing, right? And so I wanted to ask you about the warden, okay? And so they still are now digging because of the warden, right? Do you think that the whole reason that the warden runs this maybe because she was looking for something, maybe a treasure chest, and she wanted the kids to uncover it while they were digging, and then she could have all the treasure? Do you think that might be it? Or do you think that she just is greedy, and whenever she sees something of treasure, she just wants to take it? Well, anyway, what do you think that this tube, do you think that this is something like a fancy gold pen, or maybe something else? I actually didn't really think about anything. I actually thought of at first, a pistol. I actually thought of a pistol, and a part of a pistol at least. But I might be wrong. Maybe it's I gotta still think about that one. And so, okay, now I wanted to ask you about this. There was a letter from Stanley's mother, right? And so and this, I'm gonna read out loud. Stanley's mother's letter is this. "Dear Stanley, it was wonderful to hear from you. Your letter made me feel like one of the other moms who can afford to send their kids to summer camp. I know it's not the same, but I am very proud of you for trying to make the best out of a bad situation. Who knows? Maybe something good will come of this. Your father thinks he is real close to a breakthrough on his sneaker project. I hope so. The landlord is threatening to evict us because of the odor. I feel sorry for the little old lady who lived in the shoe. It must have smelled awful. Love from both of us." So if you had been Stanley, how would you have reacted to this letter? Would you have been happy, or would you have gotten a little teary-eyed because you missed your mother? Both things are completely understandable, right? And, okay, anyway, there's 0, right? And 0 is this. I wanted to ask you about 0, and 0 is a little strange. Well, not strange, but he doesn't know any nursery rhymes. He's never watched any Sesame Street. Did you think that this was weird, or did you think that it was like, so what? I don't know any nursery rhymes, and I've never watched Sesame Street. Yes, I have never in my life watched Sesame Street I've never watched Sesame Street. And the nursery rhyme with the woman in the shoe, not very sure, but I don't think I have heard it. Mostly yes, but I have had some other nursery rhymes, but never the woman in the shoe, even though I think I have heard it somewhere else. Okay, anyway, let's stop talking about nursery rhymes and Sesame Street and get back to the book. And we're now going into chapter 17. So the warden was becoming very, very irritable, right? One time Armpit was returning from a bathroom break, and the warden was like, you don't drink so much water. She says, you don't, you give these boys too much water. She said that to Mr. Pendansky. And also the warden jabbed Armpit with a pitchfork, right? And, well, how do you like the warden's attitude overall, right? Do you like it or do you hate it? And do you think that the warden should be fired? I have a question for you. Why do you think that the other counselors aren't rebelling against the warden? Why do you think that they aren't like saying stop it and raising their gun or something? Because they have a gun too. Why do you think that they let the warden, say? Maybe maybe the warden promised them power or something, but I really do not know. Anyway, they kept on digging, right? And then so I wanted to ask you about Zigzag, right? And Zigzag was was pretty had a mistake, right? And so Zigzag, so it, smash, and I think that caveman passed out. Sorry, Stanley. I'm getting so used to the caveman, And anyway, and then Zigzag was talking about dirt, right? My dirt, your dirt. Do you think that this makes any sense? And do you think that Zigzag, the shovel, do you think that Zigzag did this on purpose or not? I think that he did a little of both. Maybe not entirely, but he was a little angry and he was just swinging it around and bang, it went down Stanley. But I'm not very sure. It doesn't really say. Okay, chapter 18. So now here, we're going to talk about, so Stanley, right? Stanley writes things to his parents, right? Like this. Dear Mom and Dad, camp is hard but challenging. We have been running obstacle courses and have to swim long distances on the lake. Tomorrow we will learn to rock climb. I know it sounds scary, but don't worry, I'll be careful. It's not all fun and games here, but I think I'm getting a lot out of it. It builds character. The other boys, and then it doesn't really finish the letter, right? Because it doesn't really show. But anyway, do you think that Stanley should just tell the truth to his parents, or do you think that Stanley shouldn't, because then his parents will get very, very upset? And we learned that Zero doesn't know how to read and write, right? And so also, when Zero says, I want to learn to read and write, Stanley says that no, he's not really a teacher, right? Do you think that he did this because he really didn't think that he could teach, or maybe because he was worried, or maybe a little anxious about Zero? Maybe he thought that Zero was weird? This might all be true, but it doesn't really say the specific answer. So holes really makes you think on what the characters are thinking about, right? Okay, chapter 19. So, Stanley wakes up and Squid was crying. And then after that, we didn't really know why Squid was crying. What are some predictions? Why do you think that Squid was crying? I thought of a lot of things at once. Maybe he missed somebody. Maybe he was homesick. Maybe someone had died in his family. Maybe he was just so frustrated. So many factors, and there still might be more, right? So we really need to think about this, right? Anyway, so Magnet stole some sunflower seeds from Mr. Sir. When you read this part, how did you feel? I felt terrified because I was sure that Mr. Sir was going to catch them in the act and probably kill them. Literally. Because I know that Mr. Sir isn't the kind of guy you joke with, right? He's kind of the guy you listen to, right? But anyway, what did you think about the stealing? Do you think that Mr. Sir deserved this, or do you think that it was just really mean for them to do it? So personally, I think that Mr. Sir deserved it, but that's only my opinion. And so Stanley, he got the bag, tumbled and the seats got out and the truck is coming. So when Zigzag shouts, "The truck's coming," what did your heart feel? I mean, because you're like, did you have an immediate response? I was terrified, I was excited, and I was surprised. But anyway, Mr. Sir finds out about this, right? And so now Stanley's going to the Warden. Dun dun dun, right? Really scary, really exciting and surprising. So we are going to keep on reading, and chapter 20. Before we talk about that, I wanted to ask you, what did you predict the Warden was going to do to Stanley? I actually thought that maybe the Warden was going to try to kill Stanley for real, because the Warden isn't really a nice person, right? Okay, chapter 20. So the Warden, has this nail polish, right? And the Warden smacks Mr. Sir, and the nail polish is made out of rattlesnake venom. And Mr. Sir is like, ah, right? He's on the floor. First of all, I wanted to ask you, why do you think that the Warden even did this? Why do you think that she didn't even hurt Stanley, but hurt Mr. Sir? Do you think, why? I was really surprised at this. Yeah, like I said before, who makes you think? And maybe it's because she didn't want to hear the woes of all the counselors. She only focused on herself. And maybe, I wanted to ask you, do you think that the Warden is, nice to just, hit Mr. Sir? Because to me, I was cheering because I was like, hoo-hoo, there was Mr. Sir's down, but still, was that right of the Warden in your opinion? Not really to me, because even if someone does it to you, Mr. Sir didn't slash and, with the rattlesnake venom, he didn't do it, so I don't know why that the Warden did this. She's really mean, right? And the last, one of the last sentences was this: "He's not going to die," the Warden said, "unfortunately for you." Really unfortunate. How do you think that Mr. Sir is going to, react to Stanley from now on? Not the best, right? Anyway, so I wanted to ask you about, Zero dug Stanley's hole, right? Why do you think that Zero did it when Zero didn't even get why do you think that Zero did it when all the other kids didn't? Why do you think that Zero did it? This is a really deep question. I think that maybe Zero wanted Stanley to teach him how to read and write, and maybe this was the only way. And also, I think that Zero felt gratitude. So this is a really deep question, and you might have some other, ideas. So really deep question. Holes really makes you think. Anyway, do you like it when Zigzag said, "He's a mole, I think he eats dirt"? do you think that was a kind thing, or I mean, not a kind thing, but do you think that was a funny thing, not a really bad thing, or did you think that that was really, really mean? Anyway, so now Stanley begins to help Zero, right? So were you surprised that, I mean, Zero points out that there are actually, what was it, about 52 letters, right? Because there's a lowercase and then the uppercase. Did you ever think of it that way? I actually think I did think of it, not exactly like that, but sort of like that. I know it's a little hard to understand though. And so also Zero teaching someone how to read. Do you think that is really hard, or do you think that, as you see it from Stanley, it's really easy? Let me just tell you, it's only because Zero really knows his words and all that. To teach a kid, a toddler, my mom, because my mom teach me how to read and write, she said that it was so hard because Zero's a grown up, right? But I wasn't. So, and Zero already knew the alphabet, but I didn't. So teaching the alphabet itself is really hard. Once you've mastered the alphabet, the A sound, the B sound, the C sound, to Zero, because he's grown up, he can listen all right? But not for toddlers. Really hard, okay, for toddlers to teach. But Zero is a special case anyway. Why do you think that Zero is better at math when he's never even learned math in his life? Do you think it comes naturally? If you do think that it comes naturally, do you think that math comes naturally in the first place? I don't think it came naturally to me in the first place. Maybe it did. I'm 99% sure it did not, though. And then, so now I wanted to ask you about the KB, right? KB stands for Kate Barlow. Kissin' Kate Barlow. Don, don, don. Right? Actually, don, don, don. That's not sound very good. You have to be like don, 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 right? But I'm not one of the guys who sings like that, so sorry about the people who like that. Okay, chapter 23. So now we go back 110 years ago, okay? So 110 years ago, to me, it would have been 1911, because right now it's 2021. But for people who are listening 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, well guys, this video was made in 2021, but okay? But anyway, let's stop talking about video dates and let's go back to the book. I thought it was really cool that they began to talk about, Camp Green like 110 years ago. Do you think that it was cool, or do you think it just distracted you from the story and that the story was much more exciting than this? Anyway, Catherine Barlow, what does that remind you of? I think that reminds me of Kissin' Kate Barlow. Barlow's the same thing, and Catherine can be Kate, right? Both things work. Kate Barlow, Kissin' Kate Barlow. Whoa. I was really surprised, weren't you? Anyway, so Trout says this. No one ever says no to Charles Walker. And then Kate, I'm just gonna call her Kissin' Kate, okay? Kissin' Kate said, I believe I just did. Do you think that this was a bold thing to do, or do you think that this was a stupid thing to do? Because there's a difference between bold and stupid, right? Anyway, we're going to go to chapter 24. So, I wanted to ask you about Mr. Sir, right? And, Mr. Sir is not very nice to Stanley. Why do you think that Mr. Sir is blaming Stanley when he should be blaming the Warden? I think it's because he can't really blame the warden, and he'll be fired, right? And he won't like that. Why do you think that Stanley said, "Thank you, Mr. Sir," even though Mr. Sir just poured it out onto the ground? I think that maybe he was scared and intimidated, because if you don't say thank you to Mr. Sir, you'll probably get killed by Mr. Sir. Now, chapter 25, okay? So we're going to go to chapter 25, back 110 years ago. Right now it'll be 1921, okay? But I think that this book came out, not very sure, but I think this book came out years ago. So let's say that it came out in 2000. That would actually be 1890s. So anyway, stop talking about these dates, because we really do need to get back to the book, okay? Chapter 25. There was a doctor in Green Lake, right? But there's also Sam, the Onion Man. And Sam says that if you ate onions, were good for digestion, the stomach, the lungs, the heart, and the brain, the liver. Actually, everything was curable with onions and onion juice and onion mush and onion things, right? So, do you really agree with Sam, or do you completely disagree? How do you like Sam? How would you describe him anyway? Also, if you had been Dr. Hawthorne, would you have liked Sam, or would you hate Sam because he was taking away the business, right? And Catherine Barlow likes Sam, right? And do you think that it makes any difference for do you think it made any difference for Catherine that Sam was black? Anyway, I wanted to ask you, so Sam, kisses Catherine, right? And Hattie Parker saw it though, and she pointed at them and she said, "God will punish you." Seriously, do you think that this is fair or not? And did you actually think that it was kind of sweet? Sweet that Sam kissed Kate, or do you think that it was really bad? Okay, now we are going to chapter 26. So there was people were trying to get Catherine, right? Do you think that and Trout said, "Devil woman," right? Do you think that this was fair? Well, of course it wasn't fair. So I'm going to ask you a different question. If you had been Mrs. Catherine, would you have killed everybody there, or would you have ran away? And also, what do you think about the sheriff? He said, "I always get drunk before a hanging." He's going to kill Sam. Oh man, right? If you had been Catherine, would you have just killed the sheriff? And also, so they were going onto the boat, right? But then the Walker boat smashed into Sam's, right? Sam was shot. Catherine was rescued. And I wanted to ask you about this. I want to make you it actually is in the book, okay? It's this. Whom did God punish? Catherine Barlow or Camp Green Lake? Yeah, what do you think? Who do you think that God punished? And after Sam's death, Mrs. Catherine shot the sheriff, and then she kissed the sheriff. Why do you think that she even kissed the sheriff if she hated the sheriff? Hey, chapter 27. We go back to Stanley 110 years after this happened, right? And so I wanted to ask you about so what I wanted to ask you about is about Zero, right? Zero's real name is Hector Zeroni. Where have you heard Zeroni before? Elia Stories, Hector Zeroni. Do you really think that Zero is from Madame Zeroni, the gypsy? For Elia, Stanley's great rotten pig stealing grandfather, right? And now for the last chapter, chapter 28. So Kate came back, right, to Camp Green Lake, and so she saw Trout Walker, and there was also so now I wanted to ask you about Trout and Linda's attitude. Do you really think, if you had been Catherine, would you have been terrified or would you have just been cool? And do you really think that Catherine, buried some treasure over here, or do you think that's unlikely? And also, do you really, and also a lizard came out and the lizard bit into Kate's bare ankle, and so Kate died laughing. Do you think that this was a good way to die, or do you think that this was the most terrible way to die? I think it was pretty terrible, right? And at least Trout never got what he wanted. Well, guys, we finished today's chapters. I hope that you had a great, amazing time with me. Holes is an amazing book, and keep reading. That's my motto, keep reading. I'm going to ask you a few last questions, my normal last questions. What was your favorite part in these chapters and then the whole book? What was your favorite character and your least favorite character? We've gotten a lot of new characters from Camp Green Lake 110 years ago, right? Also, how did you like the book so far? It's really cool to monitor how you like the book so far. One time I read this book, I hated it at first, and then I loved it, and it's become one of my all-time favorite books. It's a really famous book. And finally, I wanted to ask you, what do you predict is going to happen next? Both for Stanley and for Trout, because the story of Trout doesn't come up again, but still, I was just curious, what do you think happened to Trout? Anyway, guys, I hope that you had a great, amazing time with me again, and just keep reading, okay? Holes is an amazing book, but there's hundreds of other amazing books. Louis Sacker has made so many books. Also, he's written Small Steps. I think that's the next book, okay? So, hope that you have a great rest of your day, or